Okay. We're now streaming, actually on YouTube. So we're I can go ahead and switch over to my view once I've hopped in, and I can share my view. But I guess if we just want to go ahead and start, we can do it that way, and then I'll switch it to my view, and then I can show some more of the scene for my headset as well.
Great. Let's do it.
How's my audio now? Am I still echoing?
You sound great.
Yes.
Hey, Glenn.
Real quick, Eric, what's the name of this room in your org?
It's in the Car Design Academy org, and it's Team 3 Collab.
Team 3 Collab. Okay.
You should be able to see us in here.
Okay. Great. Yeah. Well, Eric, if you just want to go ahead and start talking through it a little bit, you're good to go, and I'll switch over the video once I hop in.
Okay. Yeah. So we had a great time working together. I'm really excited about the sort of different backgrounds and different experiences that we all brought to the group. I'm an automotive and product designer. Glenn is you call yourself a concept designer? And yeah, yes. And then Noah, who is an industrial designer as well. And so we all come from, and we're in different parts of the world. I'm in California, and Glenn's in the UK, and Noah's in Germany. So or Berlin, right?
I'm actually in Nuremberg. My employer's in Berlin, though, so I bounce back and forth.
Great, yeah. So anyway, we kind of got together, and Glenn, we each came with some ideas. We started the first session just bringing in whatever ideas we had. Glenn, you brought in just a really good description of kind of how you wanted to approach the project. You might want to talk a little bit about that. Yeah, yeah.
Lynn, we can't hear you.
Okay.
Glenn,
Yeah, Glenn's not. He's not in the
your
Google.
audio is coming through headset, but not through Google. So you might want to open your browser and either turn on your Google audio to mic off of your headset, maybe.
Yeah, you're not even in the Google meeting, are you?
He's going full on Collab only.
Yeah.
Can you are you near a computer, Glenn, where you can join the Hangouts?
So anyway, Glenn had some really great thoughts about how to redefine the design process using Collab, which we all were in total agreement about. And then I came in with a concept. It was just an idea that had floating in my mind for a while, so I just thought I'd bring it to the group and see what everybody thinks. And the idea was to create a mobile lifestyle and adventure vehicle for those seeking to live a free and unconstrained life of exploration and discovery. Don't call it an RV. It's more of a mobile lifestyle habitat. It functions as a modern living space, a mobile studio, a functional base camp with capability that can take you anywhere. And so this would be a place where digital nomads could work from anywhere in the world. Adventure-seeking families could embark on extended overland adventures, and thrill-seeking enthusiasts would have a great base of operations. So I looked at all of the different design opportunities and use cases, and then I brought in a bunch of visual inspiration, just like modernist tiny homes. I thought these are really cool because they sort of mix outside and inside seamlessly. Very minimalist interiors with very making the most out of very compact spaces using natural materials, and then it's just some RV reference, very futuristic RV reference. But again, not trying to make this an RV. Looking at some interior inspiration from Daniel Simon with these very sort of linear flowing shapes that take all the different objects that go into a home and combine them together into a flowing, seamless experience. Some different takes on small pod-like spaces, and then versatile spaces, maybe even being able to link multiple objects together to form a community. So that's kind of where we started. And then Noah, I think you brought in some really cool thoughts as well.
No, we can't hear you. Let me unmute you here. Jaren, can you unmute him?
You can't unmute people. You'd be able to
No,
like listen into their conversation or something.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I can't.
No, can
There
you
we go.
unmute
Yes,
yourself?
I'm unmuted now.
Okay, cool.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. I just clicked over into my PC and just unmuted there. So I guess we were just talking about how we jumped in, and certainly for the first meeting, it felt like the first day of like car design school for me, like nervous and excited. And Eric honestly just kicked it off like a pro, and he came in with like straight up super clean mood boards, design direction, concept. And thanks to him, it was just super easy to riff off of his work. And he came up with this digital nomad idea, which is not a concept anymore. That's what I am. I live in Nuremberg. I work from home. I'm on the train. I've been in my headset on the ICE train in Germany, doing Gravity Sketch, doing other 3D stuff. So I just riffed off of his ideas. I built a couple of little mood boards here. And this was kind of the kickoff point. These tiny little boards down here. You've just got my first and biggest image is the magic, because this, I think you guys, if you know me now a little bit, this just blows me away. Like the creative piece of the work is where my heart really beats. I just love storytelling. I love tools that help me tell stories and connect with people. And so that's the first image, is just this guy in a augmented headset, little magic, a little bit of Hogwarts going on there. And then there's the technical side, what goes into a headset. To me, I just got very focused on the actual object that's enabling me to take part in this community and use this beautiful software and these beautiful tools, which is a headset. And so I started thinking it's a real trip. I've designed a lot of eyewear in my career, and it ends up being a fashion statement. Even glasses for work, even glasses just for fixing or correcting vision, become a fashion statement. And so I did a lot of time sitting in just a coffee shop, sketching people, and then thinking about augmentation, headsets. How are we going to get people used to this idea that we're wired in at all times? It reminded me of the Apple iPhone, or the headphones. That was like almost a status symbol to have those white iPhone headphones hanging out of your collar for a while. And that's going to become augmentation. What are the signals? What are the visual signals for augmentation? And you find a lot of dystopian kind of stuff. And certainly some of my inspiration images here from fashion are very dystopian, but a few were quite beautiful. This young lady here with the white, there's something very nice about it. There's a very neutral, mirrored kind of look. There's a little scary, but definitely more my personal taste, these black shapes. So what you see here is, I would say, the first one or two steps in my process, which would be riffing off of my colleagues with the mood boards, ballpoint pen sketching, reference image collection, and then the first just kind of rough 3D stuff thrown out. So that was kind of it. That's it from my side, from what I was able to contribute. But one last point for me was just coming in coming into the space was the exciting part for me. Coming in and knowing that there's going to be something new from either Eric or Glenn, that to me is an inspiration. And it sounds a bit hokey, but the sense of camaraderie in doing creative work is just lovely for me. I had a wonderful personal conversation with Eric the last time we were in, just scribbling away, and that's what these tools give me. They create this really beautiful safe space for creative work, for creative visualization.
Yeah. So, yeah, Glenn, you want to talk a little bit about your design solutions here? Yeah. Well, I hear you. Collab just fine.
Glenn, we can't hear you. Can you unmute yourself on Hangout?
Oh,
Because people are watching from the call.
yeah, I hear you.
No. You're hearing him from Collab, Eric.
Oh, yeah. We hear you in Collab, but yeah.
Yeah, just unmute yourself in the Google.
I thought it was
Meet.
unmuted.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, there you
Oh,
go.
there's
sorry
that
about
beautiful voice.
Perfect.
There he is.
Bit of an English dulcet tone. So the first thing I started looking at straight off the back of what Eric was kind of talking about from the very initial meeting was what I can bring to it in terms of the more organic side of things. So I'd spent a lot of time in co-creation during the last year and a half with as it was being developed. So I was very familiar with the process, but I hadn't really worked with a goal in mind like we had here. So I wanted to look at these points here. So let me get my pointing stick. So I wanted to look at sort of like redefining how we brainstorm. And I think we've definitely smashed that, because the ideas that come flowing out in an environment like this are just incredible. So the brainstorming side of this really smashed it home for me. And then redefining how we choose what's going to be solved. So we came in with one idea, and that quickly ballooned into all of these other ideas. From obviously Eric came back with another set of ideas after Noah and I had a blast at things, and we went in quite a few different directions. If you look up here at the top, whoever's holding the camera, we started to talk about the organics of nature and bringing some of these organic shapes. And I've just noticed actually those two, they look like the Dune ornithopters, which, and that was done well before the film came out. So I can't believe we did that. But anyway, we started to then think about the fact that if it's a digital nomad, is there a way we could build a modular vehicle? So I use the usual process that I do, which is a sketch lines here. So I sketch everything out on one layer, which I absolutely love because the fluidity of those lines is just like I get from a pencil. And then I hide that layer and then go into just a framework. And I had a problem through the last 2 weeks where a lot of my surfacing tools weren't working in the sub D. So I kind of stayed at this kind of volume tool level. So it kind of shows that you can get a long way with those tools. And I just wanted to work out some kind of a shape and an idea of the modular side of things. So I've started to we agreed on getting lots of people into the vehicle, and then we just started building it out. So we started to use the standard figures. If it's a digital nomad and we put a bike in there, we can, obviously put a character on the bike. And then I wanted to bring this idea of the whole design unfolding, and each modular part can become different modular parts. So we kind of made the walls to be tables and stuff like that. And then this is a feature I love, that if somebody wants to show this, is this idea of just taking the photographs as we're working. So I'm just snapping the work as we're going. And I absolutely adore that idea, because at the end of a session, you can end up with a model, loads of sketching, loads of ideas to talk about, and all the camera angles snapped as well. So that for me I've always liked that since the first day I used Gravity Sketch. And then I think what happened was we then kind of went back and forth, and then it ended up over on the other side of the room, which if Eric wants to take back over now, we can start talking about this.
Glenn, one quick point. I know that the first time I came in just to see if you guys had started, like one of your first reference images was up over there and it immediately sparked me to build my first model. So I wasn't even using any of the prep work I had done. I just grabbed a piece of your inspiration and kind of added that to the thinking I'd been doing. So I think that kind of well, I almost said cross contamination.
Well, that's I mean, that works for me.
That has
That
a
absolutely
negative,
works for me.
has a negative connotation. But yeah, that part was, I think, one of the more exciting aspects of knowing I'm going to come in and see what you guys had already done, and I could just riff off of that. I love that aspect of it. Sorry, Eric, I think
Absolutely.
you're up.
Yeah. So can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Great. Yeah. So the image of the rhino beetle kind of resonated with me because, and I think it did with Glenn as well, because it's sort of this, nature inspired insect shape, but it's very bulky and big, round, and bulky, and looks like it has a lot of room inside. So for something that is a lifestyle vehicle that has a lot of volume inside, but then has all of this sort of unfolding features going on, I thought that was a great influence. So, I actually came into the project kind of having in mind that I was going to do this sort of minimalist, modern cabin sort of aesthetic, and Glenn's insect reference really threw me in a different direction. And so I decided to kind of run with that and see where it goes. And so I went and started doing these just quick studies using the volume tool and trying to capture the gesture of that rhino beetle. It's very, very bulky, but very sort of functional shape as well. It's got this very planted stance to it, but kind of a forward leaning gesture. And then this one over here really started to resonate with I think everybody. It started to feel like something that could function as an RV, or as a mobile lifestyle vehicle. And so what I did from there was I wanted to being the automotive designer in the room, I wanted to actually make sure that we were doing something that was realistic in terms of proportions. So I took the wheelbase of a Jeep Gladiator, a wheelbase and tire size of a Jeep Gladiator, and built a box on top of that, and just started laying out people doing all of the different things you do in a lifestyle vehicle, like whether it's driving or using a computer, using a laptop. Maybe you're cooking, maybe you're sitting and relaxing, talking on the phone, or you're sleeping, or you're on the lavatory reading your phone. So from there, again, taking this visual reference from the rhino beetle, I started to build out.
Eric, sorry
Yeah.
to cut you off, but can we do a little test? And if you can mute yourself in Collab to see if we can, because there's a little bit of an echo happening.
Yeah, sure.
Thanks.
Okay, is that better?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, from there I started to, based on this form study here, I did a series of sub D surface models, just trying to capture different aspects of that form. And so the next time we got together, we all kind of landed on this one, and so this is the one that I've really worked out in terms of surface detail. And then Noah and I got together the other day and started to get back into the interior. And I've got one of Noah's headsets here. The driving position right now it's more of just a desk than an actual driving seat. It doesn't have a steering wheel at the moment. And just starting to build out seats. I would say the interior is more of a work in progress than it is a finished finished concept. But you can see I've kind of worked out the overall interior tub and the ambience of it. Lots of glass, big skylight, and then if I were to continue on, I would just continue to build out this whole interior and all of the functionality that goes with it.
It feels like you want to do a reality TV show in this space.
Yeah.
Right. 30 days in the van. See who's still standing at the end. I think I remember when we talked about some of the form factors in your first designs. I think one of the things I still want to do is riff off of the kind of the front end of the vehicle and maybe have that speak a little bit to the form language of the final headset as well. I think that might be nice to have the products be connected. If you buy a vehicle like this, it might be something that's actually delivered with the vehicle.
Anyway, we had a lot of fun, and it'd be fun to just keep going and going. These are a great couple of guys to work with.
Hey, I just was trying to unmute myself. I just want to say this is amazing work, and I just want to thank you guys for the time that you put into creating all this, all these concepts and working together, and just like making the time to meet with each other. And just for a little bit of context, I maybe should have mentioned it in the beginning, but we've been running a challenge with a select group of what we call Collab Pioneers, and basically place them all in groups to design for a prompt that we gave them, and the prompt was redefining blank. So it's pretty open-ended, and this is what Team 3 came up with. And so it's just really incredible to see how you guys work out issues, but also just how you think. You can see it very visually, very very plainly. I think that's what we were super excited to see too. It's just like how you all think and how that changes when you get together in the same space. And yeah, it's just incredible work. And so for everybody watching out there too, we're going to be doing more of these as well. There's several other teams that we're going to be reviewing during the week, and to see what they've created. But yeah, really really cool stuff. Back to some of the, I guess, the ideation stuff. I see there's like some screenshots or some pictures of physical drawings and notes too, which I think is super cool. That, you know, it doesn't have to be sketches in Gravity Sketch. It can be the pen and paper stuff that you can still bring right in and see other people's thinking process, you know, in the traditional format as well, which is so cool.
Well, that's the landing pad link for me. And I mean, I'm using a lot of technology, and certainly any tools that facilitate a creative process are great. Any tools that stifle it become like the real enemy. I've heard a fighter jet pilot say there's flying and then there's waiting to fly. And I feel that way about doing creative work. And if I don't have a headset, or if I'm not in front of a PC, I don't want that to stop me. And so a ballpoint pen, a sketchbook, and lots of caffeine always will be a part of this creative process, I believe. So I think both of these guys, including myself, we do draw. We do love drawing. It is a powerful tool. And integrating that, and Landing Pad does that for me. I mean, I'll snap a picture with my cell phone, and then it's basically ready to go, even in a collaborative space like this. So yeah, I mean, I think that integration works quite well. It's quite lovely to have also that granular real world texture when you're working on slick 3D surfaces, which I don't know. We talked about, Eric and I talked about that a bit. Maybe Eric, you have some thoughts about that, about the sketching to 3D, back to sketching, and so on.
Yeah, well, the tools are fantastic. You know, from being able to just use Gravity Sketch as a pure form discovery tool where you're sketching, but also like with these volume tools and even sub D, just discovering form. You know, where you're not necessarily, you might have a rough idea in your mind, but you don't necessarily have it all worked out. But you can go right into 3D and just discover. You know, the traditional 3D process is all about executing 2D, right? You have to have the perfect 2D sketch in order to execute the model. This is a totally different process where you're creating and discovering right in 3D. So once you have something that you're ready to commit to, then you can really take it all the way into a fully realized millable model, maybe even printable.
Hey, Glenn, didn't you talk about, because this is something I've been looking for quite a while, not to go off on a tangent, but that's kind of what I do. We had talked about, and I've seen, because I love sketching, it's the skill I probably suffered the most to learn. And I would love to be able to sketch, but the difference between this, right, this gesture and this gesture, actually that, just the ergonomics of that make a difference. And Glenn, you had mentioned that there were some tools for doing that. And I wonder if the guys at Gravity and the girls at Gravity have that sort of on their radar, that like for someone like me, at least, I would rather just not take the headset off, have also a flat surface on my table, and I can lean in and do a quick set of like arm swing gesture lines and then pull those up into my workspace. Are you using any of those tools, Glenn? Like the Wacom pens or
Well,
anything like that?
the one that we use the most that the Gravity team are aware of is the Logitech pen with they have a board. So I mean that's had some issues in its first round, but the idea is pretty special, really. The fact that you've got that ability to use that pen in space as well. So it's not there yet, but I know that's only one of a number of solutions. Wacom had one, which was a struggle as well, but it's so early in its development. But that seamless jumping from, I mean, the one thing that obviously that Gravity's got is the iPad 2 here, so that's the closest to it without an actual pen in VR. But I just think that's a matter of other hardware developers, getting into the space and finding their way through. It's really difficult. The more I'd research it, because if you just look at the three of us, you've got three very different backgrounds and three very different tool sets. So, a stylus for one person is fine, but for a sculptor, we have to use a stylus because we can't use our hands. But and for a car designer trying to use a pen, quite often it's a pain when they're so used to a mouse. So there's so many different backgrounds that are looking into this kind of collaborative space that it's going to take a lot of research and a lot of I don't think that will come quickly. I mean, this environment is the place to do it. It's just that the input devices they're probably lagging behind a little bit, I think. So, but I mean, I don't always want to be drawing in VR, and I don't, these controllers, the split PS4 controller is the best on the market in my opinion, but it's not a pen and it's not a sculpting tool, is it? So I think that's all to come. I mean, we've got the space now. The collaborative space is perfect for. I absolutely adore being in collaborative and working in Gravity Sketch anyway. So collaborative or not, so the tools will follow, I think, and especially if people like us keep asking for them and saying why we need them, I think it will speed up.
Well, I think the word sketch is in the title, and I think that's for me that would just be solid gold.
One of the
really good point.
One of the up and coming technologies is AR, augmented reality, and hand tracking. So, we could, in the next few years, I mean, it's already there with Vario, but at the consumer level, we could very, very quickly see headsets that are able to project the real world. Maybe you're sitting at a desk with a piece of paper, and it's able to just track your hands as you're sketching, and bring content right into 3D as you're sketching on paper.
Hey guys, if like absolutely, like being able to just use that skill that you have gained over all of these years and bring it into a space like this is definitely really important. But I want to change a bit gears, as in, like it would be great to hear a little bit more about your experience within Collab working together. It seems like you have been creating. I mean, obviously we have been jumping into the other collab rooms with the other pioneers, and everyone is using it in a very different way, in a very special way. And the way that I'm seeing you guys use it is that you were coming in, you were being inspired by each other, but you were still kind of like working on your own projects and almost using this as a virtual studio. Can you tell us a little bit about how that process was like, and like what were kind of like the good things about being in this space, and also what were the kind of like challenges that you faced while you were working together?
I can start. I can start on that because I know my first experience coming in here resonated in that it reminded me of the studios that I've been in. I've had the opportunity to be in a few really lovely studios. Like when I studied car design in LA, when you're halfway through, you get to have a studio on campus, and that's a studio where everybody walks through, and it's just inspiring knowing that all these creative minds are moving through your space, and whatever you put on the wall is going to generate dialogue. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, I have that again here through a headset. And so for me, that was just incredibly inspiring. It still is. And I've done this with a couple of other colleagues as well, parallel to doing this project. So absolutely lovely in that sense. But because then on the, I guess on the kind of on pushing back on some of the bugginess, we had a few tools that we were having problems with. And so in those moments then where the tools kind of ate into that lovely experience, I think that was quite frustrating for me. And so that definitely slowed me down, I think, when we started to run into some technical issues. But again, just that there's that experience of knowing that I'm going to walk into the space and see some sketches, some 3D, and also have some lovely conversations as I work with these guys. That to me is amazing, and it's a throwback to to being a student, like this really like brain on fire, creative time in my life, which I'm always looking for in my professional career. When often I'm just surrounded by engineers, project managers, and whatnot. So that opportunity to be really immersed in an environment with other creative thinkers is beyond lovely. I don't really know how to put words to it. It felt like a real gift. So yeah.
Yeah, and what was great was we didn't, we weren't always in here at the same time. I think we met in here as the three of us, maybe what, 3 or 4 times, and there were a lot of times where I was either one on one with Glenn or one on one with Noah, or just in here by myself. And either way, we were still all feeding off each other. And like I said, I ended up feeding off of them and producing something that was very different than what I came in initially thinking I was going to do. And that's great. We collaborated and we came up with a vision.
It's really like, and so how were you communicating throughout this process? I mean, you jumped 3 or 4 times together, had some interesting conversations. You were, I guess, communicating visually through everything that you were leaving behind when you were leaving the rooms, and then somebody else was joining and starting to create. Were you using some other ways of communicating, like WhatsApp, or were you leaving annotations that we don't see anymore because you hid them? Or
No,
WhatsApp.
we've kept everything in here. Yeah, mainly WhatsApp as far as verbal communication. Um, so if I were, let's say I had I had an hour of spare time, I was going to go into the room. I just told everybody on WhatsApp. I said, "Hey, I'm going to be in the room for the next hour. Anybody want to join me?" And yeah, sometimes Glenn was able to join me, and sometimes Noah was able to join me. And sometimes we all got together. We did have a regular scheduled meeting time once a week, but most of the other time was just, like I said, these very spontaneous get-togethers.
Yeah. Also, this was in German you would say nebenbei, like at the same time. So if I had the good fortune to be employed and working with these two guys on a project, I could see this environment as part of a work day where I spent 4 hours in this space with them. I mean, the synergy there would be unbelievable. Unfortunately, or fortunately, I have a job, and so this is something I had to do in the evenings and in the dark hours of the night, and that it was a glimpse into what this space could be. And if you have a comfortable enough headset and a good PC and a a comfortable environment at home, let's say, I could see working in a space like this, doing 3-4 hours solid of creative work in a space like this. And instead of us being, because you see there are 3 separate things going on here, we're riffing off one another, but certainly there was this kind of magnetic pull that, because Eric really pulled ahead with a lot of the vehicle stuff. I mean, I could see myself just kind of wandering over there and like working on that and pushing that, like the synergy is there. It's almost like I needed more time, in this space. So yeah.
I can definitely see that. So for me, as a designer and a teacher, this pretty much cemented what I already knew, which is this is the way forward for me for a lot of teaching. So Eric's got the most experience with the Collab setup, with the things that he's teaching, and I'm following behind him with a much more concept and film and TV kind of scenario. But it's exactly the same. I learned so much just by being in the room with Eric when we were talking about Noah's things or my things, or the fact that you can be immersed. I mean, training someone else in the room with them is much better than them watching a video. And that's the big thing about this, that this is the next, it's you're in the room with somebody, you're not watching them, so the interaction is there. So when you're failing, you literally ask, or when so you're doing a bit of deep learning, you're fixing something as it happens. Whereas on a video, you get lost very quickly. If there's a point of learning that you just can't get, you have to pull back out, or you have to go and ask someone. Whereas as we're designing and learning, so we're 3 designers, but you could easily throw in consultants, you can throw in people doing an art review, coordinators can be in the room, and we got a bit of that as we were working through it. So it's the environment to work in is just so exciting, and you can't see it if anyone's watching this on YouTube. It isn't even remotely close to the experience we've got in here. I mean, this is a room full of people now, and we're doing this presentation, but on YouTube it just looks like obviously a screen, but we can literally go down and get inside that vehicle and sit in the heads, sit and look at the console and design that bit. And we were getting that, day after day while we were in and out. And the bit you were saying, we all just said about whether and what Daniela was asking about, we actually, I think Eric was the one that said it, we don't have to all be in Collab together all at the same time. So we actually went in with an idea that we would come in separately, and I think that worked tremendously well for this group, because we're in different continents, let alone different countries. We're different sides of the world, which is how this is going to be a big benefit. So the fact that we could leave something as a design, and then someone would come in and then and then work off that, or we rejected a lot of stuff along the way. So a lot of these organic things at the top were only inspirational shapes, but they got rejected quite quickly. Now that rejection if you're working on a concept, that could take days and days to get rejected or moved on from. So the speed of iterations is incredible. If you were working on this, like if you had the team in and we were all in the same time, we would have done all of this in a day instead of 4 weeks, because it's just simply because we're all doing other things. But it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible.
Yeah. I mean, I think, Danielle, you asked for some comments about the experience. The experience for me resonates with something I paid like $1,000 a week for 4 years, like the best education I've ever had. And I've done a lot of studying in my life and in my career. And being in this space is that experience on steroids. Because, by the way, the other guys I've been doing this with next to this group, there are a couple classmates, guys that I really love. I mean, this is like a 4-year relationship. Everybody's suffering together, studying design. And I've hopped into co-creation with these guys. One of them went out and bought a headset and did his first presentation in his new job using these tools. He learned it. He picked it up in a couple of weeks, and it was fantastic. I mean, I was back in like 4th term transportation design down in LA, sitting in the studio at 3 a.m, trying to figure out like, hey, how are we going to get this model built? you know, and it's like that's priceless. You know, it's there's like space travel here, and you know, I'm always the one who gets a little hyperbolic about this stuff, but it's yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic experience. Like Glenn said, you can't look at a flat screen. This is like skydiving without the danger, obviously. It's like you cannot look at a flat screen and understand this. If you have ever attempted to draw or render or whatever a 3D object, then you have to try this. I mean, it's that simple. It's yeah. You go you'll and also people go through sort of an evangelical phase with the tools when they find them, you know, and then they very quickly, you know, they want to tell everybody about it. They want to get other people involved. And I think I went through that phase, and now I'm just in the phase of look, there are only so many hours in the day, and I'm working on personal projects with this. I'm working on projects for my employer using this tool. I participate in this sort of stuff because it's just a blast. It's just an opportunity to get to talk to two people, you know, that I've been inspired by both of their work, Eric and Glenn. And yeah, it's great.
That's awesome. It's awesome to hear. And like the part that I feel that it's the kind of like the most interesting part is that you continuously talk about talking with each other. You know, just like it's this space where you jump in and like have conversations. You know, like some people, even ourselves, think about this space as a place where you're going to come in and like create and sketch and make models, but you throughout this presentation you have been talking about having conversations, and that's something really interesting, and also something that we don't talk about that often, which is, you know, the creative process is about communication, it's about collaboration, it's about talking about ideas and exploring them together. So you have the visual part, but then you also have the conversational part as well.
Yeah,
um,
I think the first some of the first feature ideas for me were revolved around the communication. Uh, the the we I built a little talking stick, and I was like, okay, maybe if we try passing this back and forth, it'll be easier because it also is quite easy to talk over people because the physical cues are not there, at least not yet, because we don't have, you know, eye tracking and all that stuff. But that those were some ideas for me, like you said, because the communication, the storytelling, it's so critical. It is much easier when it's just when you're in here and you're having a one-on-one conversation, you know, more focused on listening and all of that. But honestly, those are some of the most powerful feature requests I could think of, because part of me is very nostalgic and I don't want the software tools to evolve any further because they're perfect the way they are. Even though they're not perfect, I just want to, you know, it'll get too complicated. That's my fear, is I won't log on for a day or two, and then I'll have to learn a whole bunch of new whatever sub D stuff and all that. But yeah, the communication part is massive. We talked about having a messaging app through Gravity, just like we have Landing Pad. I'd rather be getting notifications through Landing Pad about these projects, because, you know, WhatsApp is also where my boss is going to contact me, or, you know, whatever other ridiculous social media stuff I'm doing. So it would be nice to have a kind of a self-contained space for that communication, for that storytelling.
Nice. And while we're at it, and you know, with the 5 minutes that we have left, you started already, Noah, but what would be your wish list after having this experience working together, creating this presentation for us? What's kind of like your you know top two wish list items that you have?
Who wants to go first?
Sorry, I didn't hear that. I missed that last little bit. Sorry.
What are your top two, your wish list? Daniela would like to know you only
Oh.
get two. You only get
You
two,
only
Glenn.
get two.
So I'll go first then. So mine is so based on my background, I want well, for me personally, I want to get my training in Collab off the ground. So I don't need a lot immediately. I just need to make sure it all works for me in the way that Eric's is working in his industry. To do that, there's a couple of things I want on top of this, and one's actually not even in Collab. I want more a seamless experience and more tools in the iPad version, so we can do a lot more sort of like sketching and polygonal modeling in the iPad and come in and out of the Collab. So I think there's enough in here for me to just fly with it. Doing scene layouts that become like storyboards. All of that is there for me. There's not much missing in here for me. I'd like seamless UVs, as in I'd like it to be, UVs would be absolutely industry standard. So you could do the sub D work in here, and then both on the iPad and here, we could throw a set of functional UVs on it to make it texturing just that little bit more industry standard. And then I'd like some form of communication, non-verbal in here. So I think Noah mentioned like having the WhatsApp in here would be probably not you'd want, but the messaging service in here. And then a little bit more, as we talked about over the last year or so, maybe more, or and I don't know the answer to this, but some kind of annotation improvement. So how do you annotate that you can capture outside of here? So taking notes with some of this stuff to give to people who aren't ever going to get in here. So you could grab a set of, a design review notes and export them out for other people. They're a couple of pointers, but my wish list is not that big now because I've got most of the things I want. I just need to get on and get people in here with me to do what I do for a living.
We have 3 minutes. I have a hard deadline with my boss. Eric, you're next, but I'm going to make one wish list. I want to be able to draw like this in Gravity Sketch. I want to be able to draw with a natural pen gesture. So, Eric, you're up. And if I have to bounce, I'm sorry. I actually have a hard meeting with my boss.
So I guess my first wish is more technical, and that's the biggest technical challenge with Collab currently is the amount of data that can fill up the room very quickly, and that can be a big challenge for Quest users. Not so much all three of us had to switch to being tethered in order to be able to go into this room without crashing our Quest headsets. So, that's the one thing about people working together is the amount of data and objects in the room can build up very, very quickly, and that just needs to be managed somehow. We've talked about a few ideas on how to do that. One would be having basically making it a four-sided room where each person can have their work on one of four sides. Right now, everybody's on the mirror plane. What if you had four mirror planes? And so that way, when you're looking at a body of work, you're looking at one body of work at a time. That kind of helps with the amount of processing. And then definitely the next generation is augmented reality. So I even on the Quest, the camera tracking does enable pass-through. So I would love to see what Gravity Sketch can do with pass-through and being able to project objects in real rooms. I think that'll be a really exciting development.
Great. Well, the wish list is there. Like a lot of the Gravity Sketch team is here listening. So there you go. Obviously, we can have multiple other conversations later on, but I would like to thank all of you for being the Collab Pioneers and doing all of this great work and showing us how Collab can be used in this very creative workflow. So thank you so much for this.
Thanks for the
Thank you all.
opportunity.
Yeah,
It's
thanks for the
amazing.
opportunity.
Amazing stuff.
All right. Bye-bye.
Great.
Thanks, everyone.
See ya.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, guys. And guys, feel free to come back in here anytime. Just ping me.